Good morning to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your update on Tropical Storm Sally. This video will be just about Sally. Then I'm going to do another one that'll go over what's the latest with Paulette and the rest of the goings-on in the tropics. But right now I'm going to focus on Sally, a very serious threat, especially of storm surge and flooding rain for portions of the central Gulf Coast. So we're going to focus on Sally first, and then I'll do another video in just a little bit taking a look at Paulette and everything else. All right. First off, a big shout out here to Weather Geek, the WX Geek on Twitter for making this graphic. Appreciate you tagging me and letting me know about it. A lot of our graphics now are made by our crowdfunding folks. Kari over in the UK does my hurricane outlook and discussion graphic, which you'll see in a little while. So I appreciate it. Saves me time. And it looks nice, so thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. All right, so what I'm going to focus on is the current situation with Sally, and then what the impacts are supposed to be. I am not going to dissect the models and try to figure out what this is going to do. You know, you need to just look at this as a potentially dangerous hurricane is heading your way if you are in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. That's the bottom line. Trying to, second guess the models. Well, the model run at this time shows this, and you don't have time for that. We have to assume the worst, prepare for the worst, and you can hope for the best. And so that is what I'm going to focus on. Let me move me over here. I'm used to this being up in the upper left-hand corner. So what we see this morning is Sally is stronger. We know that by recon data, etc., but it does not look particularly healthy overall. The convection is mainly limited to the south and southeast of the center of circulation, which is right in here. That is because of northwesterly shear wind that is blowing this way over the top of the system, pushing the deep convection away from the low-level center to some extent, not allowing the low level, the mid-level, and the upper levels to all align and take off. And that's good news. Obviously, there is still an opportunity that things could align, and that's generally what the models are showing. Speaking of the models, somewhere in this window right here, approaching landfall. Water temperatures are very warm, no question of the amount of fuel available. So do not think of this as, well, it looks kind of ragged right now. You need to be worrying about what this is like in terms of its strength, its structure, and intensity once it gets over into this vicinity Monday, during the day tomorrow, and Tuesday as it makes landfall. So, it's important what it's like now, but that's not everything. And it's got plenty of opportunity to strengthen, and all you need is 12 to 18 hours of favorable conditions, and tropical storms and hurricanes can take off really, really quickly. They can also weaken very quickly, as we have seen with intense hurricanes. They can collapse very fast, but they can ramp up. And one thing that concerns me, and somebody, I think, picked this out either on YouTube or Twitter in one of the comments they made, that lately, these last few years, in sort of a reverse course, the hurricanes that hit the United States, instead of weakening before landfall, for whatever reason, they seem to be strengthening. We go back, and not all of them, but we go back, it's a majority though, we look at Harvey, definitely did. 2018, Michael is the poster child of that. 2019, we kind of got lucky there with Dorian, in the United States anyway. But it certainly impacted the Bahamas, coming in at full strength, and that was only, less than 200 miles off of the coast of Florida. 2020, Hannah, Isaias, Laura, all three of those, 100% of the hurricanes that have hit the United States this year were strengthening up to landfall. And the model guidance does suggest that Sally will do the same. Will it reach, major hurricane intensity? I don't know. Remember, intensity forecasting is where there is the least amount of skill from the hurricane community. The meteorologists, the National Hurricane Center, private weather firms, it doesn't matter. It's the toughest to predict intensity. It's already hard enough to predict track. It's toughest to predict intensity. So what I want to do is just look at this dashboard here, it's what I call it anyway, and examine the different impacts and to try to get you to understand what to expect if you are down along the Gulf Coast. So we'll start off, let's look at the 3-day track map here from the National Hurricane Center, and you can see that the track has overall shifted to the west some. So instead of it coming up and turning north and right into Mississippi directly, the center, presumably it would have an eye, the center comes in southeast Louisiana with the eye going, the center going pretty much directly over New Orleans. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this is not good, and it is going to present a very major storm surge problem for portions of the Gulf Coast. And finally, it shows that it moves inland. If we add the days 4 and 5 positions, slow mover, lots of rain through this area, this is going to be a major problem, a big disaster in the making. How much of a disaster? Well, the biggest thing that I would like to emphasize, let's look at the key messages first from the Hurricane Center. Extremely dangerous, life-threatening storm surge now expected. All right? And so the storm surge warning is in effect for areas outside of the Louisiana Hurricane and Storm Damage Risk Reduction System. All right? So it's, the surge from this could be potentially catastrophic. We'll have to see, especially if this ramps up more than anticipated. Hurricane conditions from Grand Isle to Ocean Springs, in terms of wind. And then the flash flooding with tremendous rainfall, potentially 10 to 15 inches, maybe higher. Minor to isolated major river flooding is likely across portions of the central Gulf Coast. So this is going to have 3 significant impacts, with 2 of them being potentially big-time life-threatening, and that is storm surge and flooding rain. The wind is going to knock trees down, cause some damage, yes, but the water, I don't know about you, but I cannot breathe underwater. And I'm not trying to even be silly there. You have to respect this. And I think enough people down in this part of the country know hurricanes, and they know what's coming here. But if you're new, you don't have experience with it, this is something you don't mess around. Don't look at the category, and don't look at what people are saying that, it looks like a mess right now, I don't think it's going to do anything. Just look at the science and what the possibilities are. And understand this is entirely dependent on how strong Sally is, to some extent what the structure of the circulation is, how that's all organized, and where it makes landfall. As we saw with Laura, I remember a day or 2 after the landfall of Laura, there was a lot of crowing on social media, people saying that it was overdone, it was unsurvivable surge hype, and it was almost like they were upset about it. What happened? A few days later, a survey team, including a friend of mine named Jeff Lindner from the Harris County Flood Control District, they went out to the areas east of Cameron, Louisiana, and into Creole and those areas, and they looked and they saw that there were 2-story buildings that had 4 feet of water inside the second story. Still water storm surge elevations, indicating 15 to 17 feet of surge. It's like that whole thing about a tree falling in the forest. If no one's around to hear it, does it really make a sound? Just because the big-time surge from Laura did not come roaring up through the lake south of Lake Charles, and then including the lakes and bodies of water around Lake Charles, putting 10 to 15 feet of surge in Lake Charles, because that didn't happen, people were hemming and hawing about it. Well, that was overdone. So when I show you the peak surge graphic here, I need you to keep that in mind, that this is highly dependent on track and intensity above all else. And so what we see here is the areas in southeast Louisiana I will outline them in black. 7 to 11 feet of surge from the mouth of the Mississippi over to about Ocean Springs. So depending on the track of Sally, how it comes up here, the water just gets funneled right in here like that. This concave shape is just going to trap the water like a catcher's mitt. And you need to understand this. Think back to Isaac in 2012. Not a particularly strong storm, but it pushed a pretty significant surge in here. It was fairly slow moving too. A lot of rainfall. So this is a big problem. And the north side of Lake Pontchartrain, all of Lake Pontchartrain, honestly, and even Lake Maurepas, all right? So, you know, water, like I said, I can't breathe underwater. You can't either. So, you know, take this extremely seriously. And even some surge elevation all the way over from near the Big Bend of Florida, south of Cedar Key. Cedar Key is right here. All around, you know, this is going to have impacts. Not significant, you know, in a good deal of the panhandle, but enough. Heavy seas, the rip currents, etc. We got a storm that's forecast to become a Category 2 hurricane. It's deadly. You got to take it as such. Forget about what it looks like now. What is it going to be like when it makes landfall? So the surge is the big concern for me. That's the biggest problem. The rainfall, a secondary issue, the red, 10 to 15 inches, and some pinks in there, 15 to 20 offshore, thank goodness. This graphic will change. All right, this will change, and if there's any more of a west shift in the track, you can start dragging all of this over even more to the west. We got to pay attention to this very closely, and the flash flooding potential right now, this will get modified, a moderate risk, and this will eventually go to high. I'm almost sure of it. A moderate risk there for a good deal of the central Gulf Coast, from the western Florida Panhandle, including Pensacola, Mobile, all of the Mississippi coast, and this will change over time as well. So one more, I should have pulled this up, one more piece of advice for you. If you want to know what's happening and supposed to happen in your area, I'm going to give you a clue here. You go to weather.gov, weather.gov, and you get a map here. And if you know your map and you're pretty comfortable with clicking on a map and you know where you live, you say, I live down here in southern Mississippi. I want to know what's happening. Well, you click on southern Mississippi, and it talks about, you know, with these infographics, all kinds of stuff for you, tailor-made for you. So check it out. You scroll down, and then you have another map. You say, you know, I live down here. I think I know my counties, central coastal Mississippi near Gulfport. And you get the Weather Service Baton Rouge area, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and you have all the forecast stuff, etc. But here's what I want you to look for. Hurricane local statement. Read that. And you can also get to these, just to let you know, much easier and much more convenient if you go to the National Hurricane Center site, nhc.noaa.gov, or just hurricanes with an s.gov. And your clue here, local info on Sally, right there. All right, you can click on Tallahassee, Mobile, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and that comes from their local offices. Right, so Mobile, Pensacola brings you here, and it tells you about the threats. Really, really good information here. Very in-depth. Please use it, all right? You pay for it with your taxes. I talk about crowdfunding my work. Shoot. You know, the Weather Service and all the products they have, take advantage of it. Really good information here. That's what you want right there. Sorry, I drew just below it. I just woke up a little while ago. That's what you want right there. Local info on Sally, because when it's all said and done, you want to know on the other side of that screen right there, whether you're watching me on a phone, a tablet, or a computer, or in your Tesla. Yes, you can watch these videos on your Tesla if you have the right model. You want to know what's going to happen in your area. And we can't tell you what's going to happen at your address yet, but this local info on Sally is a big, big clue. And that's very helpful. Read it. Share it with people. Talk to them about it. and you can understand it's got local watch warning information, evacuation information, expected impacts for geographic features, bayous, and other things, levees in your specific area. So local info on Sally. I want you to take advantage of that. All right. So my plans, just to update you on that, currently in the LaGrange, Georgia area with my colleague Mike Farrow. I'm going to do the video update covering Paulette and the rest of the tropics in just a few minutes. And then we're going to get out of here. And we're going to be heading down to the Gulf Coast. We're going to work with Greg Nordstrom from Gulfport. He's our meteorologist buddy from Mississippi State University. And he's in Gulfport, lives there. And the three of us are going to work today and tomorrow to set out equipment in anticipation of Sally's impacts. Exactly where we set up that equipment remains to be seen. Obviously, we're going to have some stuff in Gulfport, probably Waveland, and definitely in southeast Louisiana, some equipment in New Orleans, I would imagine. And we got to figure out exactly where. So we're going to be working on that. Later today, we will have our live stream on from our YouTube channel, the public stream on YouTube, and you'll hear and see everything we're doing from the vehicle. And we'll go from there. All right. So I'm going to shut up and post this, and then I'm going to work on the general hurricane outlook and discussion, and then I'll see you once we're on the road. As always, thanks very much for tuning in. I do appreciate it very much this fine Sunday morning. At least it's fine right now. I am Mark Sept of HurricaneTrack.com. Again, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you some more later in the day once we hit the road again.